Let part 2 begin. Hello everybody, Nicky Marra here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Sorry for the little bit strange setup. As I said in last week's video, this is part 2 to my full and complete ranking of Pixar characters. In setting out to do this video, I planned on including 70 characters all in one video, but very quickly it became evident that I had well over an hour of footage to actually show you. And so in editing it all down, I decided to create a part 1 and a part 2. I'm going to link part 1 right above for you, so if you haven't seen part 1 yet, you should definitely go check that one out first, as this is technically the top half of the ranking list. Yes friends, in this video we are going to be talking about my top 35 favorite Pixar characters of all time. I am so excited to jump into today's video, so you know what, I'm going to keep this intro very short, very sweet, so that way we can jump right back into the list. Of course, I am going to go into our brief disclaimers and conditions for the video in case you would like a little refresher as to all of the conditions for the list today. But as always, if you want to just jump right back into our ranking video, then you can head right to this timestamp. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Enjoy the video and take it away, Nikki. First and foremost, for our disclaimers, I am not associated with the Walt Disney Company or the Pixar Studios, and therefore I do not speak for either brand or either company, even though they're all kind of under the Disney subset. I don't speak for it. But secondly, with that being said, I welcome any and all opinions surrounding these wonderful Pixar characters down in my comment section. I love getting to share all of my Disney and Pixar favorites with you guys, and I have just as much fun reading all of the comments from all of you about all of your Disney favorites. So make sure to leave all your favorites down below, especially if they don't happen to be my favorites. But thirdly, for our disclaimers, I do want to give a brief spoiler warning for all of the Pixar movies that we are going to be talking about today. I don't plan on going into too many plot details, as we probably won't have enough time in this video. But that being said, if you haven't seen a specific Pixar movie and don't really want a lot spoiled about specific characters, then I more than encourage you to just jump right on up to the next number on today's list. But next, friends, let's move on to our conditions for the list today. All of the characters on today's list must come from a Pixar Studios film. That being said, they can be a main character, a side character, it really does not matter. They can definitely be a character that's very heavily marketed by the Disney company, however, they have to have been created by the Pixar Studios. And that's kind of it for the conditions. Yes, friends, we are not eliminating too many possibilities in the realm of Pixar characters. So with that being said, friends, we have a lot to talk about. So with all that being said, I believe we are ready to jump into today's ranking video. Oh yes, and really quick before we jump into the ranking video, I do want to go through the brief talking points, and I mean brief talking points, we are going to be sure to talk about for each individual character. The 2 talking points we are going to touch on for each individual character are 1, the movie that they come from, and secondly, a brief synopsis of their personality and who they are. I might throw in a few opinions here and there that I have, but besides that, we gotta keep the ball rolling, cause we have 70 characters to talk about, and I don't want you to be sitting here for 4 hours, as I'm sure you don't either. But with that, friends, we've reached number 35 on my list, the halfway point of today's list. Who is the character? Hector. Now, Hector comes from the 2017 film Coco, and he is very humorous, resourceful, and caring. He is a charming skeleton with a very mysterious connection to our leading character in this film, and I'm not going to say too much in case you haven't seen this film. It is absolutely incredible. Next, we're going to move on up to number 34 on my list. Who is the character Bo Peep? Now, Bo Peep can be seen in Toy Story 1, Toy Story 3, and Toy Story 4. She is confident, adventurous, and kind, and she is a shepherdess doll with a strong independent streak. Now, what lands Bo Peep in the top half of today's list is her drastic transformation into movie 4. We see Bo Peep in a whole new light in Toy Story 4, no longer wearing her shepherdess dress and having a very strong and independent energy. I really love this character's full arc, and the only thing that really keeps her out of my top characters is the fact that, well, her and Woody weren't able to stay with the group at the end of movie 4. But we're getting a Toy Story 5, so we'll see where that goes. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 33 on my list. Who is the character? Carl Fredricksen. Now, Mr. Fredricksen comes from the 2009 animated film Up. And he is very grumpy, nostalgic, but also quite determined, seeing as he is a widower who finds himself in the middle of a big adventure, all of which he does to fulfill a promise that he makes to his late wife. Carl Fredricksen definitely makes it into the top half of this list, whether it be from his very funny personality, which very much evens out with the other leading character, Russell, and also with his very tragic backstory with his beautiful wife, Ellie. I love this character and his story, and it just tugs at my heartstrings every single time. Next, moving on up to number 32 on my list. Who is the character? Lightning McQueen. Now, Lightning McQueen comes from the Cars franchise, and he can be seen in all 3 Cars films. And Lightning McQueen is very confident, ambitious, and competitive. And Lightning McQueen himself is a race car who is very much looking to learn about humility and also the value of teamwork. While he does start off as a very narcissistic character in the first Cars film, I think this character probably has the biggest arc that we have seen from a Pixar character thus far on today's list. He really comes full circle and really becomes a very humble car at the end of his first film. Granted, I'm not the most interested in him in the sequel films, but overall, he ranks where he does today because of his appearance in his first film. But next, we're going to move on up to number 31 on my list. Who is the character Disgust? Now, Disgust also comes from the Inside Out franchise, not only appearing in the first film, but also the second film. Disgust is very sarcastic, opinionated, and very protective. She is the emotion who really helps Riley to stay away from very disastrous decisions. Overall, I really do like this character, and I find quite a bit of her living up in my own brain. I love her sassy, spunky personality, and I think it's very relatable to anybody who relates to this emotion. Wow, maybe I'm outing myself there. But with that, we're gonna move on up to number 30 on my list. Who is the character Joy? Now, Joy also comes from the Inside Out franchise, not only appearing in the first film, but also Inside Out 2. And Joy is very optimistic, energetic, and cheerful. And she is the emotion that leads Riley's mind, constantly striving for optimism. Overall, with fear, I definitely see Joy as a personal leader for my own brain, which is why she ranks so high on my personal list. Yes, overall, I really do like the character of Joy. She definitely ranks as one of my favorites of all of the emotions, and that's because I really strive to be like her every day of my life. But overall, I'll be honest, and I'm so sorry in advance, Inside Out is not necessarily one of my favorite Pixar movie franchises, and so that's why none of the Inside Out characters truly break into the top of my list today. So with that, we'll move on up to number 29 on my list. At number 29 is the character Jessie. Now, Jessie can be seen in the Toy Story franchise, however, only in number 2, 3, and 4. Jessie is spirited, energetic, and brave. Jessie is a cowgirl doll with a love for adventure, but also with a fear of abandonment. I love getting to see Jessie's backstory, and oh my god, it just makes her so much deeper of a character. And Jessie is definitely not the character you would initially think of when you think of introducing a leading character who is a cowgirl, as she is not the immediate romantic interest for Woody, but instead has her own adventure in these movies. Next, we move on up to number 28 on my list. Who is the character? Alberto. Now, Alberto can be found in the 2021 Pixar film Luca. He is very bold, adventurous, and mischievous, and he is a sea monster who dreams of exploring the human world. I really do like this character quite a bit. He is probably my least favorite of the main trio, but again, I really do like him and all of his character quirks he brings to this film. Next, we move on up to number 27 on my list. Who is the character Dante? Oh, I love Dante. He's so cute. Now, Dante comes from the 2017 film Coco. He is very loyal, goofy, and endearing, and Dante mysteriously becomes a spirit guide to our leading character in this film. Overall, he's just a very goofy dog who I absolutely love. His energy is just so infectious in this film. Next, we're gonna move on up to number 26 on my list. Who is the character Bruce? Now, Bruce, of course, comes from the Finding Nemo franchise, and Bruce is very enthusiastic and well-meaning. Bruce is a great white shark who is attempting to overcome his instincts by repeating the phrase, "Fish are friends, not food." Overall, I think this is a very funny character. I do think he can be quite menacing, but that's what makes him interesting, is that sort of dichotomy that lies within him. But next, we're moving on up to number 25 on my list. At number 25 is the character Dash. Now, Dash also comes to us from the Incredibles franchise. He is very energetic, mischievous, and competitive. And Dash is a young superhero with super speed. Overall, I really do like this character's story arc. I love that he wants to be integrated into the normal kids' activities with sports, specifically running track. But I also love how his powers are used in both of his films. He is very, very talented and very useful in fighting a lot of the villains. Next, we'll move on up to number 24 on my list, who is Ernesto de la Cruz. Now, Ernesto de la Cruz also comes from the 2017 Pixar film Coco, and Ernesto is a famous musician with a very dark secret. He is very charismatic, talented, and deceptive. It is his role of the deceptor in this movie that makes him so interesting, and I really love this character's design. Next, moving on up to number 23 on my list, who is the adorable character Kevin. Now, Kevin, of course, comes from the 2009 film Up, and she is a rather rare bird who bonds with Russell and Carl. She is very playful, curious, and protective, and I love getting to see her have some adorable little babies in this film, as well as getting to meet her, as you can sometimes see her walking around the streets of the animal kingdom. Next, moving on up to number 22 on my list, is the character Julia. This character can also be found in the 2021 film Luca, and she is a human girl who befriends not only our titular character, but also Alberto. She is spirited, friendly, and determined, and I love her arc with the other two members of this main trio. She is a great friend and truly a sweetheart. Next, moving on up to number 21 on my list, is the character Wade. Now, Wade comes from the 2023 film Elemental, and Wade is a water element who finds himself connecting to a fire element throughout this film. He is very emotional, empathetic, and optimistic, and I really like this character's design and his overall story quite a bit. Next, we move on up to number 20 on my list, who is the character Elastigirl. Now, Elastigirl, of course, comes from the Incredibles franchise, and she's also known as Mrs. Incredible, by the way. She is a superhero balancing home life and saving the world. She is resourceful, courageous, and loving, and I love getting to see this mom do it all, truly, from saving the world from supervillains all the way to taking care of her family. She is unstoppable, and we gotta love Helen Parr for her role in The Incredibles. Next, moving on up to number 19 on my list, is the character Eleanor. Now, Eleanor, of course, comes from the 2012 film Brave. Queen Eleanor is the mother of our leading character in the movie Brave. And while she tries to guide her daughter with discipline, she unfortunately finds herself, well, transformed in this movie. She is very elegant, caring, and traditional, although finds herself needing to loosen up quite a bit in this film. I just love this character. She is such a wonderful Disney queen. Next, moving on up to number 18 on my list, is the character Doc Hudson. Now, Doc Hudson comes from the 2006 Pixar film Cars. Doc Hudson is a retired race car with a mysterious past. He is very wise, reserved, and compassionate, and I absolutely love this character. It is so cool getting to see his character personality unwind in the middle of this movie as we get to learn more and more about him and get a more full picture version of him. And we also get to see his relationship to our leading character, Lightning McQueen, change quite a bit. Next, moving on up to number 17 on my list, is the character May. Now, May comes from the iconic Pixar film Turning Red, which was released in 2022. And she is a teenager navigating adolescence while transforming sporadically into a giant red panda. She is energetic, quirky, and determined, and I think May is a great role model for many young kids. She's such a fun and spunky character, and she just lights up the screen whenever she's on it. Oh, I love her. Next, moving on up to number 16 on my list, is the adorable little robot, WALL-E. Now, WALL-E, of course, comes from the iconic Pixar film WALL-E, which was released in 2008, and WALL-E is an adorable trash-compacting robot with a love for collecting trinkets. He is very curious, hardworking, and loyal, and just absolutely adorable. This character is such a wonderful leading character in a Pixar film. I have nothing but love for this adorable little robot. Oh, WALL-E has my whole heart. Next, moving on up to number 15 on my list, is the character Marlin. Now, Marlin comes from the 2003 animated film Finding Nemo. He is the clownfish father to our titular character in this film. He is very overprotective, anxious, and overbearing. But overall, again, a character with a very, very strong character arc. Even though this film may not be named after him, he definitely is a central focus of the main storyline. Next, moving on up to number 14 on my list, is the character Colette. Now, Colette comes from the 2007 film Ratatouille. She is a very talented chef with a tough exterior. She is strong-willed, skilled, and assertive. Colette is all about woman power, and I absolutely love getting to see her dynamic in this film. She is such a strong female character, and that is what ranks her so high on this list. She knows how to put anybody in her place, and she will. Next, moving on up to number 13 on my list, is the character Violet. Now, Violet, of course, comes from the Incredibles franchise. She is shy, reserved, and self-conscious, seeing as she is a young teenager learning to embrace her powers of invisibility and force fields. I think Violet is such a wonderful character for young audiences to see, seeing as she really embodies a lot of that vulnerability that so many feel going into their adolescence. Next, moving on up to number 12 on my list, is the character Linguini. Now, Linguini also comes from the 2007 animated film Ratatouille. Being clumsy, kind, and well-meaning, Linguini is a young chef who relies on a very secret being in order to lead him into the master world of chefs. I really like Linguini a lot. I think his personality is perfectly fit into this movie. I think he makes a great pairing with Colette, and I think he has a very strong arc throughout this film overall. Next, we're moving on up to number 11 on my list, who is the character Ember. Now, Ember comes from the 2023 animated film Elemental, and she is very passionate, fiery, and determined. She is a flame element, learning to embrace love, find her identity, and balance family expectations. I love this character's arc so much. This is such a wonderful film, and I also truly love her relationship to Wade. But with that, friends, we've reached my top 10 of favorite Pixar characters of all time. If you have any guesses as to who's gonna make it in the top 10, make sure to leave it down in the comments down below. But with that, we're gonna move into our top 10, starting off at number 10, who is the character Crush. Now, Crush comes from the 2003 animated film Finding Nemo. He's very laid back, wise, and cool, seeing as he is a 150-year-old sea turtle with a very relaxed outlook on life. This character is so iconic. I absolutely love Crush. He brings such a big smile to my face every time he shows up on screen. Next, moving on up to number 9 on my list, is our titular character, Mr. Nemo himself. Now, Nemo, of course, comes from the Nemo franchise, including not only Finding Nemo, but also Finding Dory. Nemo is also very curious, brave, and determined, and he is a young clownfish eager to explore the world, despite his physical limitations. Yes, I absolutely love this character. I think Nemo is such a sweetheart, and I love the heartwarming ending to this film every single time when he's reunited with his family. Next, moving on up to number 8 on my list, is Miguel Riviera. Miguel comes from the iconic 2017 film Coco. He is very determined, kind, and passionate, and he is a boy who dreams of becoming a musician despite his family's unapproving nature. I love this character. He has so many wonderful qualities, and he is such an easy protagonist to both fall in love with and to root for throughout the ending of this film. Next, moving on up to number 7 on my list, is the character Luca. Now, Luca, of course, is the titular character to the 2021 animated film Luca. He is curious, adventurous, and eager to explore the above world, seeing as he is a young sea monster who is very interested in learning about the surface world. Kind of similar to a particular Disney princess that I really, really love. I love Luca. I think this story is so wonderful, and he is such a great protagonist for this film. Next, moving on up to number 6 on my list, is the lovable character Dory. Now, Dory, of course, comes from the Finding Nemo franchise, not only Finding Nemo, but also Finding Dory. How iconic that she got her own spin-off movie. She is optimistic, careful, and also quite forgetful. But Dory is a blue tang who is always there to lend a helping fin to her fellow friends, despite having short-term memory loss. Dory is so funny, but so sweet and so caring for everybody around her. I love this character so, so much, and she is such a wonderful role model, while also being quite entertaining. Oh, with that, we've reached number 5 on my list. At number 5, is Tow Mater. Now, Tow Mater, of course, comes from the 2006 animated film Cars, but he can also be seen in the other Cars films. He is friendly, goofy, and loyal, seeing as he is a big rusty tow truck with a big heart and a knack for making others laugh. And boy, does he. I love this character so, so much. Tow Mater just absolutely lights up the screen whenever he is present, and he always leaves characters better off than when he found them. I love this truck so much. He is such a sweetheart. I love him. Next, moving on up to number 4 on my list, is the character Joe Gardner. Now, Joe comes from the 2020 animated film Soul. He is passionate, introspective, and driven, seeing as he is a middle school music teacher with dreams of becoming a famous jazz musician. Oh my gosh, Joe is such an easy character to root for. He is such a kind soul, no pun intended, and you just absolutely have to root for him throughout the course of his film. Ugh, I love this character so, so much. He is a character that you definitely would not think of immediately as being a favorite on a Pixar characters list, but in rewatching his film, you really truly feel so, so drawn to him. Oh, he's just great. But with that, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 3 on my list. An official Disney princess. At number 3 is Princess Merida. Now, Princess Merida, of course, comes from the 2012 animated film Brave. She is independent, headstrong, and very adventurous. Merida is a young princess who very much values her freedom and the chance to change her fate. She is extremely talented with bow and arrows, and also dabbles in a little bit of magic, not only following the wisps, but also, well, feeding her mother, Queen Eleanor, a cake that transforms her into a bear. I love this character so much. She is so fiery and passionate while also being very loving and warm to those around her. Such a wonderful role model. Absolutely love Princess Merida. Next, moving on up to number 2 on my list, who is the iconic fashionista, Edna Mode. Yes, Edna Mode comes from the Incredibles franchise, not only being found in the first Incredibles movie, but also Incredibles 2. She is very confident, witty, and no nonsense. She is a world-class fashion designer, specializing in hero costumes. However, I warn you, don't ask her for a cape. The answer will always be no. I love this character. She is so funny, so witty, and again, just makes me laugh anytime she is on screen. She is just iconic in nature. And if you ever get a chance to meet her in Disney's Hollywood Studios, take full advantage. Her meet and greet is so incredible. No pun intended. But with that, friends, we've reached number 1 on my list of favorite Pixar characters. Have you possibly guessed who it could be? Yes, friends, at number 1 on my list is Remy. Now, Remy comes from the wonderful Disney Pixar film Ratatouille, which was released in the year 2007. And Remy, of course, is a rat who has a dream and a passion for cooking, seeing as he wants to become a chef despite, well, social obstacles. But despite all of those obstacles, he is ambitious and creative and just such a wonderful leading character in a Pixar film. I don't think there's anybody that watches Ratatouille that doesn't absolutely fall in love with Chef Remy. Oh, he's so iconic. I love this character. Absolutely deserving of number 1 on my list of favorite Pixar characters. Whew. But with that, friends, we have talked about 70 of Pixar's most iconic characters. Thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun talking about all of these incredible, no pun intended, Pixar characters. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on future magic from me. Likewise, you can also find me on all of my other social medias at Nicky Marra with 2 Y's and 2 R's, and I am most active on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I am so enjoying making long-form videos, and I am hoping you're having a wonderful start to your 2025. And I cannot wait to share next week's video with you. I'm already planning it, and I am so excited to dive into its topic. So with that, friends, I'll say thank you so much for watching, stay magical, and until next time, I'll see you all real soon.